the manual, power cable. How's it going, everybody? This is BeatTheBush. goldenmate sent me this 1000 volt amp UPS, which stands for uninterruptible power supply. What is it and what do you do with it? The most useful way to use these things is to plug a desktop computer to this thing, or perhaps your internet router. Right now I have the lamp connected to this UPS. Let's say the power goes down, or for some reason the circuit breaker trips, maybe as a result of using two hair dryers on the same circuit. You pull the plug on this, the light stays on. The UPS will sound an alarm every once in a while. You can hear that beep. It means there's no power. It's draining the battery to supply whatever it's plugged into. So whatever you plug into it, the power is going to be uninterruptible, at least as much the battery can supply. Sometimes if the power goes down, you want to still have internet access, and most routers do not have a UPS attached to it. So if you have a cell phone, backup battery for your cell phone or whatnot, you still need internet from your internet router in your home. This thing will do that. The pricing is lower than dedicated battery systems because this is tailor-made as a UPS. You're not supposed to do other things with it. You're supposed to keep it always plugged in, and it's gonna be always charged. When something happens, it will switch over within 20 milliseconds, and you can plug things like computers and stuff, and it's not gonna power down. If you're on a desktop system and you're working on something, some spreadsheets, you're working on it for like 3 hours and you didn't click save yet, if you pull the plug, you're gonna lose all that work. So having a UPS on these kind of systems makes it a lot more reliable. Now let me show you some features of this thing. 13 inches long, 9.5 inches tall, 4 inches wide. Press the on button. It's making an alarm sound because it's supposed to be plugged in. By itself, uses 13 watts. The side. The back has 4 AC output ports. You connect the AC here, there's a reset switch, and there's a communication port here. The bottom has rubber feet. It's intended to be stood vertically. UPS 1000 VA, 25.6 volts with 9 amp hours. This equates to 230 watt hours using a lithium iron phosphate battery. Load capacity is 1000 VA, which is voltage times amps should be less than 1000 at all times. But in terms of wattage, it needs to be less than 800 watts. Output voltage 120 volts, 60 hertz. It has all the certification, CE, ROSE, FCC. It sure is making a lot of noise, so I'm gonna plug this in. The input voltage is 120 volt AC. It's still using 16 watts. Output is 120 volts. When I turn it off, it's charging it at 25 watts. This UPS has 230 watt hours. What does this mean? Your computer likely uses about 100 watts. Maybe your monitor is 50 watts. It can run 230 watts for 1 hour, or 460 watts for half an hour, or 115 watts for 2 hours. You multiply the wattage times the hour, it becomes watt hours, and you need to be less than 230. I have a lamp connected to the output of this goldenmate UPS, and also a scope connected to it to measure how long the switchover time takes. I'm gonna pull the plug, stop. I've caught the switchover right here. This is an AC waveform. You'll notice that the voltage is 100 per division, each of these squares. So when you look at it, it looks almost like 200 volts peak to peak. Well, root mean square is actually 113 volts. So there's this little discontinuity over here. We can zoom into that. So it's not a perfect switchover where you're not gonna see any kind of artifacts. But from this point to this point, it's only a delta of 17.8 milliseconds. During this time, the voltage is still fairly low. It's being discharged. So technically anything connected to this is still being powered. And at this point, the UPS inverter kicks in, drawing power from the battery, and it continues a negative cycle and then back up. If you take a look at the envelope here, it went down a little bit. It takes a little bit of time to recover all the way to maximum voltage. A lot of equipment such as desktop computers can stay on if the switchover time is less than 20 milliseconds. If you have laptops, you actually don't need a UPS because it has a battery built in already. Some UPS has a slightly faster switchover time of about 10 milliseconds, and at that point it would be considered server level quality, and there's not going to be any kind of read-write errors when there's a power failure. This UPS device has a button in the front that turns on and off the inverter. The internal inverter consumes energy, so you don't want it on all the time. When you're done with everything, push the on-off button to turn everything off. completely power it off, because the battery is not completely full and it's plugged in, it's using about 26 watts to charge the internal battery. At this rate, it takes about 10 hours to charge from completely empty to completely full. Many general purpose power banks will charge your entire battery in about an hour. So why does it take 10 hours on this one? That's because it's designed as a UPS and it's meant to be plugged in all the time. So you're gonna be trickle charging it all day long, and it's not that big a deal to charge it slowly. When you turn it on, it switches from how much is using to charge your battery to how much the inverter is using, which is 18 watts. So 18 plus 25 would be 33, which is what this watt meter shows over here. This inverter is consuming 18 watts and it's not doing anything. So if we plug in the light, it is consuming 23 watts. So 23 plus 18 is 41, 42 watts or so. There's also this little icon that shows its grid power. If I unplug it from the grid, it switches over to battery power. And it'll also make this buzzing sound to indicate that it's on battery power. This is very typical of what UPS does. The battery indicator is a bit complicated. It differentiates between 8 different states of the battery charge. So 4 solid bars means it's between 60 and 79% full. If the top bar starts blinking, that means we're 80% to 90% full. And if all 5 bars are on, it's between 90 and 100% full. I have left it plugged in overnight and it's fully charged. I'm going to discharge this entire battery into another battery. My watt meter is showing 800. The UPS is showing 777 watts. But because of conversion inefficiencies, it needs to draw about 900 watts from the internal battery. My calculation shows it should get completely cut off within 15 minutes. And over here, we're measuring the overall usable capacity, 28 watt hours so far. And based on this conversion efficiency, it's losing about 14% because internally it has to convert that DC power into AC power. And I expect the usable capacity to be about 198 watt hours. It took about 13 minutes to drain all of it at 800 watts. Most likely if we connect a computer or an internet router, it's gonna last much longer than that. My watt meter shows that you can use about 185 watt hours out of this thing. That's an efficiency of about 80%. So if you're drawing around 200 watts, you'll get around 50 minutes of runtime before the battery goes dead. Idea usually with UPSs is not really to run for an entire day. It's to have an alarm and alert you that the power went out so you can quickly go and save your files and power everything down. Therefore, you won't lose anything that you've been working on for hours. If you run, let's say, an internet router at 15 watts, will likely last a lot longer, probably around 10 hours or so. Thanks for watching this video. I hope this explains a lot about UPS systems, why you need one. If you guys are interested in getting one for yourself, check out my affiliate link down in the video description below. Thanks for watching this video. Until next time.